Today, I'm going to talk about some of my favorite locations where I would personally consider buying a home in the Costa Blanca region of Spain. You might know me because I've bought some budget homes in the town of Pego. They were 5,000, 9,000, and 20,000 euro. And because of those experiences, I get a lot of questions about where to buy. People are always wondering, where should I live in Spain? And this is really regardless of budget. So you could have a budget like I did where you're looking for these cheap homes to renovate, or you could be buying a half a million or $1 million villa somewhere. But regardless of budget, let's talk about areas that I have really come to love in the Costa Blanca region. I have now owned homes in this region for around a decade, and I have traveled to so many different cities and towns and little villages. And I really want to share with you the places that I have found that I personally would live in. Hi, my name is Nicole. Welcome to my channel, Travel to Money, where I share about how to travel, adventure, and have fun on the road to financial independence. Thanks so much for joining me. If you haven't yet, be sure to subscribe and become a part of this really awesome community. Before we dive into these stunning locations, we need to talk about the reality of making this dream happen. If you are planning to buy a house overseas, you have to figure out how to actually move your life savings across the ocean without losing a small fortune to hidden bank fees. That is why this video is a paid partnership with Wise. Later in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how Wise offers tools and support designed specifically for large transfers, including tiered volume discounts and a dedicated support specialist who will hold your hand through the entire process. If you click the unique tracking link in my description right now, you can get your first transfer fee-free up to $600. So let's jump into these places that are some of my favorites in the Costa Blanca region. I get a lot of people who reach out to me. I do coaching sessions on how to buy a house in Spain. And one of the questions people are asking is, where should I look? And that often depends on a lot of different factors. So I'll usually find out from them, well, are you okay not having a car, or do you want to buy a car while you're there? So things like transportation really matter in helping them determine what would be good places for them to look. Are you looking for a city? Are you okay with a small town? And so when I'm doing those personalized sessions, it makes a lot of sense to talk through what would be best for them, even if it's a place that I might not be interested in personally. But today, these are just my personal recommendations. So I'd love to hear from you in the comments too, if you agree with any of the ones that I'm sharing, but also like what would be your top 5 places in Costa Blanca based on your experience if you've been to the area. We can all learn a lot from each other, and I always love when you share. So the first place I want to share about is Javia. Javia is a beautiful coastal city between Alakante and Valencia. It's about a 40-minute drive from where I live, and I often visit there to go check out one of my favorite paella places called Posit, which is right on the water. It's really gorgeous. But Javia has a couple of different areas, right? Like you have the old town, which is set away from the coast. Now, I've actually walked from the old town down to the coastal area. It wasn't that long a walk, maybe 15, 20 minutes. Could have been up to 30. I could be remembering wrong. But the old town is really beautiful, and that's where you have more of your traditional Spanish vibe. However, I want to mention that Javia, of many of the places that I've been to, seems to be one of the more English friendly places. And I don't necessarily mean that as far as speaking to people. I just mean that I've seen English on a lot of signs, and I find that to be kind of odd. Like, I don't see that specifically in a lot of places throughout Spain. So they have definitely incorporated that a lot, where there will be the Spanish version and then you'll have an English version next to it. So if you're someone who is dependent on the English language and still working on your Spanish, it can be maybe a little bit of an easier transition. Now, you go down to the coastal area and it's a lot more touristy, but in some kind of way, it doesn't feel over touristy. I go to a lot of places that kind of turn me off because there are just too many tourists and everything seems like cheap tourism, whereas this feels a little bit more like high-end tourism. So there's something kind of nice about that. There is this beautiful walkway. So anytime I go to eat there, I always go for a long, like, coastal walk afterwards. I've even seen some camper vans parked down there sometimes. There's a cool kind of parking area on the beach, and it's just a really neat vibe. I like that you have the Spanish Old Town, but that you have this really like high-end tourism that feels just kind of nice if you're going to be in a tourist area. I know a lot of people that love this area. Now, real estate can be a bit more expensive. This is not necessarily where you're going to find even $100,000 home would probably be difficult. But if you have the money to spend and you are looking to live in a place like what I've described, I think Javia is a really great choice. I would easily choose that as a place to live if my budget was quite a bit higher than it has been in the past. And just to kind of note the size, Javia has a population of around 30,000, which is 3 times the size of my town of Pego. Now, in summer months, that can swell to up to 100,000 because it is one of those more tourist locations. I also want to note that I have never spent time in Javia in the summer, like once it's in full tourist season. So if any of you have and you want to share notes on that, I'd love to hear them in the comments. But I really love Javia, beautiful area of Spain. You're closer probably to the Alakante airport than Valencia. But the thing about Javia is that it's not right off of the main highway. So you have to kind of come off of that and go outward toward the beach, like going eastward. And when you do that, you're going to add on a little bit of driving time. But really beautiful area, really easy to get around, and definitely one of those places that I would love to live if I had the budget. Okay, the second place I want to share about is Altea, and this place really has a sweet spot in my heart. I have loved Altea for years. There's a hike that I often take my visitors to go do that's just down the coast from Altea. I think technically the hike isn't in Altea, but it's sort of always part of my visits to Altea, where I go out this beautiful long path that leads to this really cool lighthouse, and it's just lovely. I love that in Spain I can do these coastal hikes where you have a view for the entire walk. It's just really lovely. But Altea is actually referred to as the cultural capital of the Valencian region. It is really special in a lot of different ways. There is definitely another level of tourism similar to Javia where you're going to have your old town. And the old town, I would say in Altea, is maybe a little more popular than the Javia Old Town. I feel like Javia has more of the tourist area along the beach, whereas Altea, it kind of comes up and rises up on this hilltop. And on the hilltop, you've got this beautiful church. And that is really, I would say, the main tourist hub. Now, you're still going to have tourism along the beach there, but I think the tourist center really revolves around the center of the old town. Altea is just a little bit smaller than Javia at around 25,000, and approximately 8 to 9,000 of those people are going to be either expats or immigrants from other places around the globe. There is just something incredibly charming about Altea. I almost always take visitors there, and it's probably the number one place where I would buy a home if I had the opportunity to. I just absolutely adore it. One thing to note though is that it is really steep. So going up and down, like if you are at the top where the castle is and you're going to walk all the way down to the beach, you're taking a lot of stairs. It is quite a walk. So I could understand how some folks, maybe in retirement, who are less physically able, may want to avoid a place like Altea. But at the same time, we learn a lot of information from blue zones, right? Where people tend to live a lot longer, that walking up and down hills can actually be really helpful for longevity of life. So I find that kind of cool, but it's not necessarily going to be for everyone, so you just have to be aware of that. Now, as far as home prices, they're probably going to be a little less expensive, like 5 to 10% less expensive in Altea than in Javia. Javia is considered a little bit more of a prime location, and so you might be able to find some slightly better deals in Altea. However, because it still is this beautiful coastal city, You should expect something probably at least in the couple $100,000 range if you're planning to buy there. Now, whether you are buying a 20,000 euro fixer upper or a 500,000 euro luxury sea view villa in Altea, you have to figure out how to actually pay for the house. And this is exactly where the financial logistics can become an absolute nightmare if you are not fully prepared. When sending large amounts of money internationally, for example, buying a property abroad, relocating your family, or moving your savings overseas, you're dealing with high volume transfers. Wise offers great tools and support for large international transfers. If you use a traditional bank, they often charge fees that aren't always made clear upfront and offer exchange rate markups that can add up significantly without you even realizing it. I learned this the hard way on my very first house purchase. I went to my traditional United States bank to send a 2,000 euro reservation deposit. And between the flat international wire fees and the awful exchange rate, it cost me way more than I expected. I knew I needed to find a better way before it came time to transfer the rest of the money for the house. That is exactly why I switched to Wise. Wise is not a bank. It is a global money management platform that is designed to keep fees low and transparent, even for large international transfers. They offer clear pricing before you send, and there are no hidden markups on exchange rates. Sending money with Wise is on average 3 times cheaper than with competitors. But here's the absolute best part about using them for real estate. Wise has tools and support built specifically for these large life transactions. First, they offer tiered volume discounts for larger transfers, meaning the more you send, the more you can save. At this time, transfers of 25,000 United States dollars or more trigger volume discounting. When you initiate a transfer, Wise automatically shows the discounted pricing at larger amounts directly in the app. Second, when you are sending larger amounts, Wise provides access to a dedicated support specialist who can guide you through the entire process. Moving your life savings is incredibly stressful, but when you initiate a large transfer in the Wise app, a button to contact the high volume support team will automatically appear. You can reach a dedicated support specialist via email or request a call. Instead of navigating everything alone, you get help with understanding the transfer process step by step, answering complex questions, and preparing required documentation ahead of time for verification. Once you are connected, you can actually continue working with that exact same person for future large transfers, ensuring a smooth and consistent experience. A huge challenge with real estate transfers is that your home bank may have strict daily sending limits. Your Wise support specialist can actually help you understand your bank's transfer limits, plan the best way to move your funds, break transfers into smaller steps if needed, and ensure the full amount can still be sent efficiently. Having a real person guiding the process can make a huge difference. If you're planning an overseas property purchase, moving to another country, or sending international investments, do not forget to sign up using the unique tracking link in the description to get your first transfer fee-free up to $600. The next place on my list is my sweet town of Pego. I couldn't make a video about my favorite places in Costa Blanca without mentioning Pego. I have really come to love this small town. I am so glad that I purchased there. Honestly, it's just one of the best decisions I've made in my life. It's great for me. I have plenty of videos about Pago, so you can check those out if you want to learn more about it specifically. But I love that it is surrounded by the mountains, that it's just maybe a 20-minute drive to the beach, that I'm close to so many other places. I love that I'm right between the Valencia and Alakante airports. That has been super handy for me. And I just really love the town and the vibe. One of the cool things about it is that it's not overly touristy, and they actually are looking to bring in tourism, and they're happy for expats and immigrants to be buying homes there, which is not the case in a lot of other places that have become overrun by tourists. But they were formerly an agricultural community and the town was dying off. But rather than seeing the town die, they are making moves to improve the town and to bring more people in, which is really awesome. At least it's awesome for now. We'll see 10, 20 years from now, but that's something that I really like about Pego currently. The people there are incredibly friendly. It's just really easy to get around. I don't need my car while I'm there. I do need a car if I want to go somewhere else. Now, there is a bus route from there. You could live in Pego without a car. It's just not something I would probably recommend. But I love this town and I'm so happy to be there. I will say that that is where I bought my budget homes, but I don't want anyone to think that you're going to show up in Pego and find a house between 5,000 and 20,000 euro. Not only did I find crazy insane deals, you'll also hear me talk in some different videos about the uniqueness of my street. And so you can watch some of my other videos about that. There are reasons that I was able to get those homes at those prices. But in addition to that, over the last few years, we've really started to see home prices going up. And they're going up everywhere. It's not just in Pego, but it is definitely in Pego. So I think if you wanted to buy a home there, you probably need to be coming to the table with a minimum of 50 to 100,000 euro, but probably even more than that, just depending on what kind of place you're buying. Like if you're buying a complete derelict that needs a whole renovation, maybe you could find something more on the budget end, but we are definitely starting to see the prices go up. Another place I want to mention, and I haven't done a full video on this one yet, but I'm going to soon. I've already filmed for it, so you can be on the lookout for it. I am really crazy about Andara. Now, this is between Pego and the beach. Previously, I had only been to Andara to go to the big kind of mall they have there. On one side of the highway, there's this really large mall area with a Carrefour. It's got lots of restaurants. It's got a Leroy Merlin, but it's very like, I wouldn't say industrial, but it's just these businesses, right? But recently I went to the town of Andara, which is on the other side of the highway. So it's nice. It's kind of separate from that, but you have that right there. So there are a lot of things I like about the location. First of all, it's inland from the coast, so it's not super touristy, but it's still really close to the coastal area, so that's nice. It's also right off of the N332, which is this road. It's not the big highway, but it's kind of secondary to that. It runs all the way from Valencia to Alakante. It's a little more windy, but it's a very main like thoroughfare. And you can exit right off of that and be in the town, which is pretty awesome. And you can't say that about a lot of places. As I walked around the town, I noticed that many of the homes had this really beautiful tile on the front, different tiles, different colors, but that seemed to be fairly unique to this town. Like, I don't necessarily see a lot of that in Pego, for example, but this was really beautiful. It felt like it was about the same size as Pego, and it seems, as I was looking at real estate, like it is similarly priced to a town like Pego. So there aren't going to be crazy tourism prices that you would get if you're right on the coast. And the location is just really awesome. So again, I'll do a more in-depth video on that you can be on the lookout for later. But that is definitely maybe a place to check out if you come to the area. Then the last place I want to talk about is Alakante. This is the city on the southern part of the Valencian region, and it's become one of my favorite cities to visit. And it's definitely, if I was going to live in a city, it would be a place I would look. It's around 300,000 people, so it's less than half the size of Valencia, but still like a pretty good sized city. I love the history there. I love the culture there. And even though it does attract some level of tourism, it doesn't feel overrun by tourism. And so that's something I really appreciate about that. It's got the airport right there, so that's pretty awesome. Alicante has become one of my favorite airports to fly in and out of. I now try to book flying into that airport or out of that airport anytime I'm coming to Spain if there are flights available. So home prices in Alicante are going to be more of a mid-range. They're not going to be as expensive as a place like Javia or Altea, but they might be a little bit more expensive than a place like Pego or another place like Gandia. Alicante has become a place that I take visitors almost anytime they come. But I could see just living there and it being a really comfortable lifestyle. You have mountains all around, great hiking nearby. You have all the towns that I mentioned that you can visit, like Javia and Altea, that go up the coastal area. But you would have the convenience of living in the big city, having lots of public transportation options, having the airport. I could just see it being really awesome. Years ago, I took a catamaran tour off of the Alakante coast. So there's just a lot of like water sports activities that you can do, different boat day trips that you can go on. It just seems like a really fun place and I like the vibe a lot. So now we've come to the end of this list. I hope that this was helpful for you. I'd really love to know your thoughts and opinions, what you think about these places that I've mentioned. Of course, again, these are specific to me, places that I would choose to live. I've spent a lot of time in all of them, except for maybe Andara, where I haven't spent as much time, but I think it's adorable. I hope this was helpful for you as you navigate just maybe your visit if you have that coming up. You can, of course, book a coaching session with me if you want at traveltomoney.com/coaching, where we can talk more through your specific situation and what you're looking for so I can kind of help you navigate the process of buying a home in Spain. I'm always happy to meet with folks and love to chat with you one-on-one and learn about your story. Don't forget to use the unique tracking link in my description and pinned in the comments to get your first fee-free transfer up to $600 the next time you need to move your money abroad with Wise. I have used Wise for almost a decade, and for me, it is my favorite money management app that I recommend to everyone buying a home overseas. Now, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to join me every day where travel and adventure build financial freedom. I can't wait to see where your dreams will take you.